Way here.
Yeah,
Ellen, do you mind throwing up that first survey about how fall has gone thus far, since we are almost done September? Crazy, crazy. So we'll get that poll up there just to get a sense of where we're at. So just a little reminder of the way that we've run these chats in the past. This is really just a chance to connect and be with one another across Canada. We've got a great representation from across Canada. We're looking at 58 people right now. Lori Sigfridson is the current president of PHE Canada. She waved there. She's rocking her orange shirt, as am I today. Although it is good that I did work out earlier and I have not changed my shirt, so it's good that this is a Zoom meeting. I'm just saying. Just going to put that out there. So maybe that's too much information. I'm sorry. So please keep your mics muted, but if you do want to talk and say something, you can put your hand up or just speak, or you can say in the chat that you'd love to join us and have something to share. We keep it fairly informal overall. Welcome, Megan, to the chat.
I just came to see my cat.
Oh, very good. So we have four kind of general questions that we'll work through, but we're very open to going off on tangents and moving a few different things. Just having a chat to see how people are doing. Lori, do you want to add anything?
yeah, tonight, just like all our other chats, this really is just about us having a conversation, supporting each other, giving each other ideas, and helping each other through, a very unprecedented time. One of the things that I was in a staff meeting today, and one of the school administrators said this was probably the most prepared they ever felt of starting a school year. And I think it was, we've had feedback from parents saying this has been probably one of the smoothest back to school plans that they've ever seen. So, we know that there's been a lot of work behind the scenes going on to make it look like it's seamless. And so, tonight is just really about connecting and seeing how we can support each other to continue that work. So yeah, welcome everyone. Good to see you all. And so Doug put up a poll, and just to check in to see how fall's going. So our options are better than expected, as expected, worse than expected, or holy, I had no idea. So if you would just want to go ahead and fill in the poll, and then we'll get started.
And I think we also recognize too that, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's so 34% better than expected, 42% as expected, 8% worse than expected, and then 6% on, oh, I had no idea. And I just wanted to say, we recognize too that our contexts are very different, not just across Canada, but within provinces, within cities, within towns. There's very different contexts. So when you do share in chat, it's great if you share your context a little bit of where you're at, because that's super helpful. I'll just share, Lori, if it's okay, I'll just share a quick little story, and then we'll get to our first question. Just a personal piece. So some of you know that my wife is a teacher as well. She teaches junior high math, which is super weird, but okay. She does have a phys ed minor, so that's really why I married her. So that's good. But so she had a student in her class last week that tested positive in her health class. Didn't have really any symptoms, maybe had 2 days of the sniffles, and that's it. So the way that it worked in her school division is, so 7 teachers in the school were sent home. This is a junior high of about 500 kids, so grades 7 to 9. So 7 teachers were sent home, and I think about 30 kids from a bunch of different classes. So she is teaching from home currently, and there's a substitute teacher in her class. And because for her, one of her math classes, for example, she has about 3/4 of the students that are in the class, but the other quarter of the students were in that same health class. So they're also isolating at home. So she has both students in the classroom and a sub teacher. She's projected onto the Epsom board at the front and also has students online. So super stressful, super different. And we've been really focusing on, just in our own conversations, just, you know what, we're doing the best we can. It may not be the way we want to teach all the time, but we're doing the best that we can, and we can keep rolling there. And the test result, like if you test positive in Alberta, you're supposed to find out in 24 hours. If you test negative, it can be up to 72 hours to find out where you're at. So she'll be off school for almost 2 weeks. She did test negative, just so everybody knows. But I just thought if I shared a little personal piece, I'm not personally in a school right now teaching. I'm at University of Alberta. We are completely online right now for all of our classes, and I'm in more of an administrative role this year, and it's all administrating by Zoom. So the first question, so we start out on a little bit upper note, and it's great to see that people are using the chat to just share a few things, which is awesome. We're a month in, 30 days in. What's been working well for you? Okay, nothing. Moving on to the next. No.
I'll say,
Sure, go ahead.
I was surprised with listening to everybody over the summer when we had our last Zoom meeting, and I just brainstormed with some of my department members and came up with an idea that really worked. And we were so organized where I got hula hoops, and I alphabetized every student in a class. And so if they're number one on the attendance, they got number one hula hoop. Did that for 15 of my kids, and they're 2 meters apart. So every time they checked in, they get number one, and I have all their assignments in number one. When they arrive in the morning, they're all ready. And then when we use equipment, we give them number one basketball, number one volleyball, number one birdie, and it works very well because we sanitize at the end of the day. That's another issue. We don't have any sanitizing anything. We're supposed to pay for our own stuff. But my department is making it work. It's really good. It's actually very safe. The kids are having a riot, and I'm surprised. I was really surprised, but it does work. So.
Yeah, thank
That's
you,
it.
Linda. Glenn, do you mind explaining your sponge activity? I know you sent me an email, but.
Sure. Actually, if you can actually just put it up, Doug, we can just do it.
Okay, let me just pull that up.
So the idea is kids are just like us. We're logging in at different times. And we want to just maximize the time that's there. And the sponge activity has actually become a favorite activity of the kids. So I'm helping with a class in South LA, a school in South LA, grade 9 PE down there. And they're all remote. So it's 4 classes of grade 9s. And so this is what we're doing. And the feedback the kids have been giving is they call them the brain thingy activity. So they like that. So that's all this is just to get people thinking and logged in, and kids are logging in earlier. And we don't want to penalize the kids that are on time. And so the kids who are logging in later don't get as much time on the sponge activity or the brain teaser as the kids that do log in at the start. And out of the whole school, we now have the highest student engagement level of all the classes. So that's been a really nice surprise.
Wow. Yeah, that's great, Glenn. I'm just, I can share my screen here. Looks like, just give it a second.
So this would be an example. So we put it up, the instructions are there. There are 9 people in this attached picture. How many people can you find? And then we just put some music on and let the kids go. And they can put in the chat box as they find them, or they can wait, try to, so how many can you find there? So there's criteria: 6 for ordinary, 9 if you're extremely observant.
Now I'm going to be looking for the next 10 minutes, Glenn. Thanks a lot.
So anyways, that's an example of the activity.
Okay.
Types of
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just something to engage and bring the kids in. And yeah, I think these kind of things are really helpful going forward.
And there's tons. So you can do these, these types of things. There are matchstick math puzzles, just anything that just gives the kids something to do at the start and gets them engaged.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Great. I've just been kind of going through some of the chat comments and just, talking about really getting kids outside and really enjoying that. And for the most part, I think across the country, the weather's been somewhat cooperative with that. And I know here in Nova Scotia, especially for our high school students, they've really been enjoying getting outdoors. They're starting to get involved in more outdoor ed activities as part of the PE programming. So they're hiking, they're mountain biking, they're setting up campsites, that type of thing. And so really just enjoying being outdoors. Lara mentions the Fair and Square resource. I think a lot of my phys ed teachers that I work with have been using that resource. And one of our PE teachers actually built out of wood a stencil to make it easier for us to paint the squares, so that that stencil has been traveling from school to school in our region, so that we can, have a little different space for some of our programming pieces as well. Anything else?
Hi, Scott Taylor. This is I'm a phys ed consultant for my board, and in elementary school, it's just the I guess the dirty stuff is a few teachers bought wagons because they're teaching outside. So in terms of that's been a huge success for elementary school teachers, because they're able to take their equipment, their ionic stereo outside if they want to do a class to music and everything for prompts. So it was we did that in a sharing session with 23 teachers, and I've heard positive feedback just in terms of putting on a phys ed course outside or trying to adapt. And the wagon was quite funny that it was one of the big hits for teachers in terms of teaching outside.
That's great. It's nice. Just some of those simple practical things moving forward are super helpful.
And sometimes they make all the difference in the world as to, how much you're enjoying your day with the kids, with how much lugging you're doing of equipment and how much time you have to spend doing that versus spending time being, relational with the kids. So every little bit can help.
Mm-hmm.
A great idea, using sidewalk chalk.
Yeah, I know one of our stalwart health and phys ed council teachers here in Alberta in the summer, she spent some time out on the tarmac with some paint and painted all these social distancing stations and ways to move between. And I know she's been using those all fall, just to go forward. And Glenn mentioned the aerosol transmission as more of an issue as the contact, and we're seeing some of that science coming out right now. So yeah, having that space, the food coloring, the snow is awesome. And maybe if anyone, Grant McManus from Manitoba asked, curious about what product people are using to clean sanitized equipments, and can we get students to sanitize their own? I know in my wife's school, again, this is math, but the students, when they come into the classroom, they are moving to different classrooms. They come in, they get a wipe right at the start, and they sanitize their desk right off the bat. So that's one example.
Is anybody using the fog misters for sanitization? And how, if you are, how they've been working, or?
I did have one phys ed teacher who was using a cordless paint gun to spray. He found it was much faster. So he didn't buy the mister, but he got the cordless paint sprayer and adapted it to clean his, he'd get a rack and he'd spray the basketballs or soccer balls or whatever he was using. And he found that pretty quick. It's $270, I think it was. So.
Ask a question.
Absolutely.
We were told that we can't, sorry, you know, I'm so frustrated. I'm told so many inconsistencies. I have some people in our board in our school using Lysol wipes. Some are using sanitizers. Some have been told not to. Some said you have to be WHMIS trained. The administration for me says that we have all back ordered. You have to buy your own stuff. And then they said you can't use it. And then they don't have any information. So they've told me to call my PE coordinator. He has no information. And they told me to call the occupational safety and health. I'm waiting for a response. I'm getting like no major confirmation on what I can use. So people are just using their own thing. The other day, one of my friends said the health and safety inspector came in, removed all the sprays and said it's poison. So like, I'm beyond frustrated. We're trying our best, but I mean, I'm down to baby wipes and alcohol. That's what I'm using. Like, I can't find wipes on the shelf.
I can answer that one from an ATFO point of view, from a union piece, if you'd like.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm parenting at the same time, so I apologize. I'm not putting on my video.
No problem.
Sorry, I'm Brenda from DDSB. Part of the reason is that union, from this health and safety standpoint, there's a lot of stuff that has, from women's training, there's a lot of stuff that is not allowed. They've been a lot more lenient with it, but the inspector has every right to remove any of that. It has to come from the board.
Okay.
And do that for your safety, because if
Or
anything
admin,
happens
though.
to your students from it, you become liable. So don't mess with that, please. From a union standpoint, whatever the union has said for you to do, whatever your health and safety rep says for you to do, make sure you're doing it.
But we don't have direction. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not getting direction. Nobody's telling me, admin, the school board, everyone's all over the place. So some are doing it and some aren't. And then they told me, just don't use equipment until we get information. Then I heard 3 other schools said their principals did get info. They passed Lysol wipes, they passed the sanitizer and said it's okay. Where our admin said no, they haven't heard anything. So like, I don't know. That's my biggest frustration as a department head. Like, I don't know what to do. I called my union, I'm not getting responses. Okay.
Yeah, union.
Thanks.
I would go back to the union. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and I
No problem.
just to jump in for a second, and thanks Brenda for bringing that perspective. That's important. A number of people are saying about just local context and everything, and like even when I teach safety guidelines to my pre-service teachers at the university, I always contextualize that with you. It's always what your board has first. And so I know it's super frustrating, Linda. My phrase I've been using more than anything else, and I used to have a t-shirt with this on it, is what it is. And so it's trying for things and saying, listen, I'm trying to do good things for these kids. You need to give me some direction. and sometimes it's not going to come right away, or it's going to come and it's going to change later. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to, I think, be flexible and work with it for the good of the kids and do what we can. But I totally get your frustration with that, because that just, yeah, not good.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think, like they're saying in the chat, we do have to be flexible. We do have to kind of let things flow in a different way than maybe we're quite used to. But, one of the conversations that I had early on, just to help support our phys ed teachers here in Southwest Nova, was with our operations team. So with our custodial staff, and all of the phys ed teachers did have to have WHMIS training to be able to use equipment and sanitize it. So it is different every place you go, but if you have, if you could have an opportunity to have a conversation just with your custodial staff and see what they're using to sanitize products in the schools, and maybe what the math teachers are using for manipulatives, and just see what other people are doing that may have to do something similar. Yeah, Glenn, good point. Don't get married to one solution. And day by day things change. What we could do yesterday, we can't do today, and vice versa. So it's trying to hit a moving target, and it's just incredibly challenging. Does anybody else want to share something that's been working really, really well, or just kind of a highlight for your year so far?
I'm Jen from Winnipeg, and I love how everyone's wearing their orange shirts today. But one thing that's worked really well is just coming back and absolutely being committed to doing double ball, an Indigenous game that was created for community building. I did it 3 years ago with my outdoor ed class, which was 15 kids. And it's just a simple stick. You can look online for the game. But I always shied away from doing it with 25 kids, and just for running with sticks. And it is homemade equipment that I painted. But in order to get each homeroom their own equipment, it really worked cost-wise. And it forced me to really look at my organization as well, saying how else could I also start this unit. So I painted a large circle of spray paint in the grass, and it's large enough. I'd make it a little larger for social distancing, but we made it into a medicine wheel. So then the next step was, we're not using pennies and colors. We have the colored sticks, but when we went to lacrosse, I used tape to use the colors of red, white, black, and yellow for the medicine wheel. So those are our team colors, and it looks like it's going to stick for the year. And when we come together and put our sticks in, if we're sitting around the circle, we actually make a medicine wheel. So it's kind of nice. From the mental health point of view, what I learned is yellow is in the east, we get a new start. And I get the chance to remind myself and kids, we get a new start each day in each class if we need to. It's created some nice sharing, whether it works better at the beginning or end of class or for instruction. That I say we're all facing each other, because I think coming back from remote learning, we needed to learn a lot about listening again and not blabbing, just saying everything that you think, having a bit more face time. So that's been really valuable for me going forward.
Jen, would you mind putting the name of that game up in the chat for everyone?
Oh, sure. Yep. It's called Double Ball. I don't want to take too much time, but it was created for different tribes coming together from different areas. So we talk about Northwest, East, South as well. And it's helped the kids stay wide. So when I call them in by their colors, they know where they have to situate themselves in the field. And it's worked for 4 weeks in the field with different sports. So it's something to check into. Yeah, I sure will put it up. And if you are interested, I know the national conference, they made the ball with a nylon and balloon and sand, and I really recommend racket balls and just a black large sock. It works really well.
Thanks, Jen.
Welcome.
Does anybody else want to share?
I'm willing to share.
Great.
I'll
Thanks,
actually,
Brenda.
now that my children have gone to bed, I can actually see everybody. I'm teaching completely virtual for grade 7 and 8 phys ed, and it's been a juggle. I've been actually working with Glenn, who's been awesome. Thank you very much, Glenn, giving me some great ideas for assessment and evaluation. And I started off with something that I think was more, it was a little complicated, but it seemed to really work. We are doing virtual journals, which are basically portfolios, and choice boards. So the kids have lots of choices to choose from. They click on it, and we started off with one of the choices being walk, roll, or ride, because they really wanted to get outside and move, and this is the perfect temperature for it. My board has now said, has kiboshed that, but I've still left it on as a, you can do this after school choice, and they collect points, and they seem to really, like, they give me feedback every week because we do a different choice board every week. And so they're creating it, and they've got input as to what comes next, and they seem to really, really enjoy that. I can't read the chat. Oh, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Brenda. Lori, should we move to the next section maybe?
I think we should.
Take it away. Oh, and just while Lori's taking it away.
I'm just writing a few notes. I'm trying to remember what people were saying.
Oh, I know. I just want to, no, it's okay. Go ahead, Lori.
Okay. So with what's been happening in your schools and sharing some of the great things that have been happening, you know, has there been any kind of challenges that that you have been able to overcome, or anything that, I know, Linda, you spoke about, you know, sanitization issues. Is there anything else that, you know, that we might be able to share and support each other in to help us through this next little bit? We've got 68 people that can help us problem solve. Hey.
Go for it, Jen.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry.
Cool. We had a professional development day last Friday, and a group of small but eager visitors got permission to get together and social distance in a gym together. Just, you think it's different across the country, it's different across the city of Halifax. So your frustration is shared. I think just the biggest thing is to keep your routines. Let the kids know that you're there for them. We've had a blast. I've gone outside every day, which is not really my forte, but I'm channeling my inner woods person, and we're having a great time. So we do outdoor ed once a week, and the kids are loving it. They're saying that they've never gone in the woods, which baffles me in Nova Scotia, but nothing surprises me now. So it's just been great to try some different things and putting yourself out there and becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm loving it. But we also have a great bubble, so sorry everybody else.
Thanks, Jen. You did cut in and out a little bit, and you went really slow, but I got the sense of being outside and keeping routines and connecting with kids, and lots of kids had not spent much time outside. So this is a new opportunity that we're using based on COVID. That's what I got out of it anyways. So thanks for sharing.
It's Nikki. Am I able to share a silver lining, but then I also have a question? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
I teach in a fairly large middle school in Toronto, and specialist teachers have been given cohorts. So as a result, we're teaching a variety of subjects. So I typically would have a full health and physical education timetable, but this year I have a grade 1-2 timetable that includes health and phys ed, music and dance. So it's pretty cool gig, but it's not my grade 6, 7, and 8 girls health and phys ed. So the silver lining is that we have more teachers in our building teaching health and phys ed. And my silver lining is the fact that we have organizations like PHE Canada, our own provincial organization, OFIA, and our board organization that allows those of us that are specialists to share the resources that with teachers who now teach health and phys ed. Right? So we have lots of resources and support. And I think it's neat because these teachers are now actually making time for health and phys ed. So it's fabulous to see kids outside with their homeroom teacher, because everybody wants out of the building, actually participating in health and phys ed. That's the silver lining, in my opinion, is more health and phys ed. Not necessarily the way I would do it yet, but it's still early in the school year, so we'll work on some professional learning with the staff. But my question is, I've noticed something, and I don't know if anybody else has, and because I'm teaching in a different space, maybe this is normal, but I'm seeing kids at recess waiting for their friends by the steps. And what is becoming apparent to me is that because we're in a different learning environment in our classroom, kids aren't interacting as much. You're not able to do as much collaborative work. So kids are waiting at recess for their friends from last year's class to come out the door. So they're not interacting with their current classroom. So I don't know if anybody else, obviously high school teachers wouldn't have this experience, but elementary teachers who are noticing this, because I find it fascinating. I've never seen 20 kids standing around the steps waiting for their friends to come out. You see 1 or 2 kids, but not usually this many. That's my question. My concern is that we are present in the building, but are we really interacting? Are we really giving kids opportunities to make new friends, make new connections in their new classrooms? Or are they still relying on the connections that they had last year? And there may not be an answer.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, Nikki. I see a few responses there. Leah responded about the bubbled classes, not allowed to cross-pollinate, which is an interesting term with other classes. But I think that is something that we have to be aware of. And phys ed has always been, and health class has always been a great place to allow kids to interact in different ways that they don't sometimes get to in class, especially now with less group work, less collaborations, and those kind of things. So yeah, any ideas on how we can how can we facilitate connections within current classes, because they can't go back to the friends they had last year to some extent. Great question.
I have a question for everyone, just kind of following that point. So we're all really careful in the face-to-face environment of social distancing. But during lunch or recess, when the kids are out on their own, what I've noticed in walking by schools in my neighborhood, there's no social distancing with the kids. They're we're in BC, well, everywhere we're supposed to be in cohorts, but I see cohorts, I see kids just being kids on the playground. So how much of what we're trying to do is just optic?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Doug. Hi, everybody. It's Grant McManus from Louisville School Division in Winnipeg. Just had this conversation with our phys ed staff yesterday, elementary. It's the great debate about optics. I was able to put a frequently asked questions, guidelines, considerations for programming out to our phys ed staff. But schools are recesses all over the map. All of them have designated areas. They rotate those. They're very strict. If not being too presumptive, we probably have the strictest cohorting guidelines in the province in our school division. And phys ed staff told me outright, some of the things I've suggested that are okay as part of phys ed, their school's not comfortable with it simply because of the optics and what neighbors driving by, simply because it is what it is, and I can't fault them for that. It's just I feel bad for them, and in many instances, I think we're probably at the opposite end of the spectrum than what you're describing, Glenn. And at some point, it doesn't make it a whole lot joyful for the recess supervisors, because they're the social distancing. Like, they never get a break, even though they're outdoors for recess. They never get a break from being the social distance monitors. And in our admin meeting last week, the superintendent asked all our administrators, how things are going. What are their thoughts? And top of the list already 3 weeks in was the mental health and wellness of staff, and we're barely just begun. Like, it's concerning, without question.
I think, Grant, it's a really good point you bring up, because it seems we're 4 weeks into the experiment, right? So it seems, and Glenn has a good point to my point about in BC, the CDC policy is they don't social distance, they just don't have contact. So that's the standard for the kids. For the adults, for the teachers and men and everybody else, it has to be different. And so maybe being masked and PDP and everything else is part of that process as well. But the number of exposures, it's been interesting, because we've been tracking them every day across almost every district in the province here. And the exposures aren't that prevalent. Like, there's some districts that don't have any yet, not one exposure. So it's been very interesting. I mean, they've always been saying that this doesn't transmit amongst kids that easily, that well, whatever expression we want to use, or they don't seem to pick it up to the symptomatic level. So that's why I'm saying this is an experiment. This is going to be very interesting to watch as this continues on.
I'm just reading the chat. It's a different way of working for us, and it is exhausting. Speaking to a lot of friends and colleagues, just around the end of the day, they're done. Like, they just don't have anything else to give, and just really some concerns are starting to be exposed around mental health and well-being of staff, students, support staff. There was a comment made the other day that it may not be COVID that actually shuts down some of our schools, but lack of being able to have support staff and teachers in the schools could be one of the ways that our doors close. And so, what are we going to do to help support our educators and our students so that school is a place that they want to be and feel safe? And I think that's a big challenge, and a conversation that really hasn't taken place at senior management levels or even at the ministry levels.
Yeah, and I think this is, like, number one, this is a fantastic conversation, and I think I've heard lots of stuff. There's been lots of memes even on, for example, our Minister of Education in Alberta met with the president of the Alberta Teachers Association, and they sat like at far ends of a conference table and wore a mask, and then someone else took a picture of a group of 4 desks that are allowed to be together with kids not wearing masks and saying, what's the difference here? So I think encouraging our teacher unions, encouraging people to advocate for the health and well-being of students first, but also teachers, and to make sure that we are always advocating for what is the best thing we can be doing right now, education-wise, pedagogy-wise, obviously guided by public health regulations. But, you know, the question that's been asked, you know, why does this work in restaurants but not in classes? Why does this work in business but not in schools? Those are good questions to ask, right? Those are, and part of it is we're feeling our way through things. You know, we've never been in a situation like this before. Swine flu, H1N1 never went like this. So this is new territory. And I just want to say right now, I think like teachers are freaking awesome. Like you're doing such a good job, but, and I'm going to maybe segue into our next question, Lori, if that's okay. And we always sacrifice stuff for our kids. We always go through and do these things, but we also have to take care of our own wellness. And I know you're taking care of the wellness of your students, but so how are you taking care of your own wellness? Or maybe it's staff wellness. Maybe you're seeing people stressed out. And I know that we're resilient and we can do stuff, but we have to be aware of where our line is on things too. And I'm hearing more from teachers that are going, I mean, I've heard a few from people that are retiring early from the teaching profession. You know, even people that have maybe only taught for 10 years and they're suddenly going, you know what, I'm going to take a break. So how are you taking care of your wellness and how are you supporting those people around you? The tough question, I know, because it's, yeah, we really want to do what's right for kids, but we also have to take care and our families, because we're worried about our own families and our own bubbles of things too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think this is Scott Taylor, Let's Be Pearson. I think a lot of professional communities within the schools are suffering a little bit because I know at staff time, teachers are social distancing. So there's not that usual communication or support that is usually there for each other. So that's another little look at that situation. So it's harder to maintain that that staff cohesiveness and support.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And Bridget, and others, thanks for your comment about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, cut yourself some slack, teachers. You're doing an amazing job. Like, is too. I have that conversation with my teacher friends too. Like, just you're doing what you can, right? It's amazing. Sean, that sounds fantastic. From your get out for some paddleboarding, kayaking, something you can do at a distance. That's a great way to just reduce stress and connect. I've done some meetings here, like again, I mentioned I'm in an administration role, and I'm mostly on Zoom, and it's freaking driving me nuts. But there's been some things where I've, like with my dean, I had a meeting with my dean last week, and I just said, "Can I drive to your house and can we just go for a walk and have a meeting that way?" And she was like, "Yes, please." And she's not a health and phys ed person, but it was just so good to get outside. We went and walked in the River Valley, had a great meeting. So I think there are little ways we can still connect, even though some of the normal ways we can't do anymore.
One of the things that, you know, I had a conversation with a phys ed teacher today, and, you know, we just chatted about really limiting, you know, social media and, you know, just not getting caught up in that whirlwind of negativity that sometimes is present, you know, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or, you know, just really just being mindful of where you're putting your energy and, you know, maybe just shutting off from that completely for a little while. And yeah, just being outside or just being with your family or, you know, just not listening to the racket that sometimes takes place on those mediums. Oh, great idea! Starting classes with meditation or mindful breathing.
I've tried this and I can't believe the success. It is absolutely, I have 3 students that have been diagnosed with stress anxiety disorder and they weren't coming to class, and we tried to get them in and try to get them in. Finally, 2 of them showed up this week, and I've been doing this, and I can tell you with myself and my students, lights go out, and talking about complete calm, and we stretch and we put the calm app on, and then honestly, we're ready to go 20 minutes. I do it every morning. And I can't tell you the difference it makes for myself and for my students. And then we go outside and then they're ready to go. I mean, we even had a CPR test, a written test today in the classroom. And after that, before I started with calm breathing, and I think it helped them settle their nerves even. So it's a very good idea. It really works.
Thanks, Linda. That's great.
Thanks.
Sorry, I just chuckled at Brenda Carberry's. Well, she just sent it to me. Can I share it, Brenda? Yeah. She's like, because I mentioned just that I keep channeling Dory that just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And then or feel like a duck, calm on the surface and paddle like heck underneath. And so I thought that was good. I think, yeah, connecting with that social emotional learning and connecting with mindfulness and just being aware and taking that moment. I found just taking a moment to check in with staff and just say, hey, how's it going? Like, obviously you don't see people in the hallways. It's a different vibe, right? So those things are real important.
Yeah, as educators, we don't have this protective zone around us that, that COVID hasn't impacted us as well and our families. And so, being able to realize when, we're getting to that saturation point, or when we're feeling that our coping strategies are starting to slip a little bit, I think we need to just be really aware of how we are feeling and, just checking in with ourselves every now and then and making sure that we're doing things that take care of us. And it's not a selfish act. It's actually a loving act, so that those that also live within our bubble are okay as well, and not having to kind of maybe walk on eggshells or be uncomfortable as well.
I just have a comment. Just around, I think we have to remember that as a profession, especially physical educators, like we all have some prowess. Like, we got into this business because we're good at what we do. And I think in education, we also have a higher level of standard that we're proud of. So, and sometimes that puts pressure on what we do, but I'm looking at the screen and I'm thinking, I don't see anybody on the screen that wouldn't go that extra distance for a kid or their school. And we're proud of that. So sometimes I know we're not perfect, but we also hold ourselves to a higher level and we want to do a really good job. Easier said than done. And I know it's tiring, but I like that word prowess. I think we're really good at what we do and we care about our kids, and sometimes we don't have the answer, but we can, we can make it better, or we want to make it better. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Reg. That's super important. And we do have that, we do have some prowess. We do have some expertise in that area, and to share that, but also to sometimes, it's the old adage, physician, heal thyself. Like, sometimes we don't practice what we preach. And so that's a good reminder to go, no, we need to apply this to ourselves, right? Like, just take that moment. And I just wanted to say, like, I have to say, this chat line has been the best chat line of any Cross Canada check-in I've been on, because there's just so much, just so much great stuff in there. Awesome, super awesome. So thanks for that brilliant stuff. I'm loving it. I wonder, Ellen, if you don't mind putting up I'm a little late on this, sorry, but putting up the second little poll. Oh, look at that, super fast. So where are your biggest areas needing support moving forward? And I know we don't have everything in here, There's lots in the chat, so this is really good. Obviously, leaning on each other is helpful. Thanks, Glenn. So just take a moment and fill that piece out. I will take 2 moments to remind, and Ellen, maybe you can drop in the chat the Share to Care resource. So PHE Canada has a Share to Care program, which is accepting applications. And so it's about connecting to mental health, and staff wellness initiatives are welcome, as well as district board level submissions. So I know you don't necessarily need one more thing on there. And I know in the poll, you can only pick one thing. So just maybe pick the thing that's the most good, but feel free to drop stuff in the chat in terms of what are your biggest areas of need. That's okay too. And then I will also direct you to the PHE Learning Hub. Is it the Learning Hub? Is that what we call it now? It was the at-home learning piece.
Learning Center. Yep.
Oh, thank you, Lori. Sorry. PHE Learning Center. There's new stuff all the time. It's growing. It's changing. There's lots of good stuff in there. I'll also shout out a little bit to OFIA has great resources. CIRA Ontario, SPIA has some great stuff. HPEC, Everactive Schools. I could keep going. And if you have links for better things, sorry, Sandy, I just saw your thing on I need a better snowsuit. And yeah, that's going to be a factor when we're going outside and we need better stuff. So that's good. So we'll certainly look at this stuff, and we're moving to the end of our chat. And kind of the last piece that we really wanted to talk about a little bit is just what are some topics for the next call? Like we had talked last time in end of August about doing this on a monthly basis. And so do we want to, we talked about maybe breakout rooms, maybe specific topics. We're getting a little bit of a smaller diehard group here, which is fantastic. It looks like assessment is winning the day on the poll. So some work on assessment, especially online. How are we assessing kids, virtual learning? So maybe just open it up for some, what are some topics that we might want to discuss on the next call? Maybe there's some webinars, some connections that we can have some people do that will help with online learning moving forward. So fill your boots. What do you got? I know I rambled too long there. I probably lost everybody, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm just reading. I'm reading the chat, so I get lost in the chat. And so, you know, I like the idea of, you know, maybe even looking at some of where the biggest areas of need support that you have, you know, and resources to support learning and assessment. You know, those could be 2 great chats just right there. And so maybe we could start just a document with just different topics as we go along. For those of you that are teaching online, how, you know, what are some of the assessment pieces that you're planning to use this year?
If Glenn's still here, Glenn would be a really good person to talk to about this. He is much more eloquent, but definitely looking at student portfolios. I do exit tickets, entrance tickets, check-ins. There's a bunch like pictures, videos, flip grids, just to get the assessment piece in, but Glenn has really good ideas.
Thanks, Brenda.
Sorry.
All in favor of Glenn leading some webinars?
So quite a few weeks ago, I think, Brenda, I can't remember how many weeks ago we did that call. On Twitter, we were having I posed a question just in that I think our biggest challenge now with remote learning, any subject area, is going to be assessment evaluation, because in the spring it was kind of, by default, we thought it was going to be temporary. We make it to the end of the year, okay, every kid passes type of idea. We had no idea that we're going to start the year in this type of a format, and now we actually have to look at how we're going to assess and evaluate. So I think that's a big challenge. So I was asked a question on Twitter, if I was teaching, what would be my grading format? And so that kind of prompted the conversation, and then I ended up doing a little presentation for, I guess that was about a half a dozen people, Brenda, something like that. And that's sort of what Brenda was referring to.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who missed it, and they were very, very sad about it.
And so that could possibly be an area of interest for others if you just, like Doug mentioned, just throw stuff up in the chat, and we have the chat recorded, and then we get to go back and review and see what people put in there for ideas, so it won't get lost. So if there's anything, and if there's anything after we close down for the evening, if there's anything that bubbles up to you, or a conversation that you think you would like to have and that it may be meaningful for other people, just email us anytime, and we can add it to the list and see what we can do to support you.
Before we
So
close,
we're getting to,
sorry, Lori,
yeah, go ahead,
before we
Glenn.
close, just be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just like to give a round of applause to all the teachers here that are doing it's fantastic work in very difficult, trying times. And give your pat on the back, go home and hug your
Double thumbs
partner,
up.
take some time with your kids, whatever you need. But it's an amazing time, and I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, and I learned so much, and I'm really inspired by what you're doing and how you're persevering through these difficult times. It's unreal.
It's really humbling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, yeah. Lucky kids to have all of you in their corner. And, it just goes to show how passionate you are to be with us on a, for me, 9:30 on a Wednesday night. And we all want to have a conversation around what's happening in our world and how we can support each other. So thank you for taking time, your personal time, to be with us and share and work through this journey together. It's so appreciated.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We will do this in another month or so. We'll set another date for, probably late October or early November. We'll see where it goes. There is for those on the call who might be phys ed teacher educators, phys ed and health education teacher educators, we have a call next week with Lorenz Souls and I. But thanks again, everyone. It was great. I love this community. It's absolutely fantastic. And if you're interested in this same kind of call en français, that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So thanks very much, everyone. I think this is goodbye. Thanks, Lori, for co-hosting with me, and a big shout out to Ellen and Jody and Faye and the rest of the crew at PHE Canada. I saw Melanie on there. I saw Tricia. I saw a few people supporting on the back end. So thanks to that. And thanks for checking in. Have a great Wednesday evening.
Be well, everyone. Take care.
Happy trails.
Thanks very much. Bye.